Peaceful greetings, everyone, and I hope you are blessed wherever you are. I figured I might as well throw in my little 2 cents in the ongoing story that is the incident between Will Smith and Chris Rock at the Oscars. I waited for a little bit to say anything because I just wanted to watch and see the shape the public narrative will take. And it is very interesting to me that it has become such a polarizing discussion. So there are people who, well, there are no excuses for what Will Smith did. There is no grace to be had. Cancel him, take away his Oscars, so on and so forth. For a lot of people, they talk about him as if what he did is the worst crime in humanity. And I am talking in black spaces. Let me make that very clear. I am talking amongst the black community. How dare he, and so on and so forth. We must as well write him off. And then there are people who are trying to figure out, what caused him to reach that point, and they're trying to find the excuse. And those are most often than not, those are the same people who talk about Chris Rock. He should never have made the joke, and so on and so forth. And it's very rare that I find somebody that says, well, the joke should never have been made and the action should never have been taken. And even rarer are people who say for the offending party, which is Will Smith, let there be grace extended. Now, my comment on the comments are, it is interesting to watch everyday people, civilians, if you will, and celebrities when they talk about Will Smith and his actions are a threat to comedians everywhere, and how dare he, and he's childish. I heard someone say it's toxic masculinity and it's privilege. He should be sued, and so on and so forth. I listened to everybody talk about this man without a single ounce of sympathy, no room for grace whatsoever, especially for someone who has been in the entertainment industry for 35 years. And personally, this is his first offense. So the same people who will run around advocating for a fair justice system, especially for first offenders, find no grace anywhere in their commentary or reaction for this man. Oh, there is no excuse whatsoever. I also find it interesting that a lot of the celebrities who, for lack of a better word, descended on Will Smith, you go back and look at their public record, and a lot of them have done worse. A lot of them have done worse. I'm going to use the example of Jim Carrey, who forcibly kissed someone on stage when he was being presented an award. He essentially assaulted someone on stage, and yet nobody counseled him and nobody had anything to say. Yet he's one of the fiercest critics for Will Smith. So just for anybody who is listening who finds two things can be true at the same time. What he did was wrong, but something led him there, and let there be a measure of grace for him. Because as you're throwing stones, be very careful that you are not living in a glass house or in a house that has an area of glass, because sometimes that stone can be thrown back and it will shatter the glass you've used to surround yourself. Just there's a lot of hypocritical stuff going around. That's what I'm saying on that. And then of course there is sympathy for the man who got assaulted and essentially humiliated in front of the whole world. So yes, there is sympathy, but again, two things can be true at the same time. His brand of comedy sometimes goes after people and their personal appearances or sore spots. I know people love to say, oh, everything should be open to comedy. Yeah, you can say whatever it is and make whatever joke you want to make, but you need to remember not everybody is going to react the same way. You cannot expect that everybody can take a joke and just laugh it off. You're not in people's psyches. You don't know what traumatizes them or what might trigger them. So you run the risk of triggering someone when you make certain jokes, especially people if you're not that close to them. And even if you are close to them, you just never know. So I'm never for the brand of comedy that uses people's appearance as the launching pad or the basis of the joke. I really hate that. And sometimes his comedy tends to skew that way, which is kind of why actually I lost interest in him as a comedian, but that's neither here nor there. Some people find it funny. I don't. I don't appreciate it. I don't think people's appearances should be included in jokes. I love to laugh and I love comedy. I draw the line at joking about God and the Holy Spirit or anything God related and people's appearances. And anything anyway, that's besides the point. What I am trying to say is we can have sympathy for the man who got assaulted while also acknowledging that he is not guilt-free in the entire saga. So that is that. The larger discussion, I think, though, that after a week, we should be talking about is trauma and the ways it can manifest years later. Because trauma often manifests in incidents, situations, and environments that often do not necessarily mirror whatever event that happened that traumatized us. So let me explain what I'm talking about. Chris Rock did an interview where he talked about being bullied as a kid, and just the effect generally it had on him. And I think he's been diagnosed with some kind of learning disorder or something along those lines. I can see how being bullied can be very triggering for someone. Will Smith also did his autobiography and documentary, I believe it was last year, where he essentially he grew up in an abusive home, and he's a man who he's 50 something years old now, but for as long as he can remember, for the majority part of his life, he's always thought of himself as a coward who could never protect his mom. Couldn't protect his mom from whatever his father was doing to his mother. He's always thought of himself as a coward. Someone who could not protect the woman he loved the most, his mother. And as I watched on the Monday morning when I woke up and saw all of this news feed, the first thought that occurred to me was, I wonder how much of his reaction was referencing that time in his life. Here, because to him, he was defending his wife. Like people, I hear people saying that is not how you defend it. Oh, that has nothing to do with it. To him, he was defending his wife, probably doing what he thought he should have done in order to protect his mother. Whether it was appropriate or not is not, obviously it's inappropriate, but that's not it. I just think something that happened to him probably in his childhood or a culmination of the past few years, because if you've been listening, between his wife's talk show and his he has been the center of jokes in an industry he has worked in for 3+ decades over the past 2 years, and so it might just be a hodgepodge of all those things that just came pouring out, because I seriously doubt that joke alone is the singular reason he got up there. It was the straw, they will say the straw that broke the camel's back, or the tipping point for him, I think. And also Chris Rock as well. I think about someone who has been bullied to be publicly assaulted like that and what he must be going through. I think for both men, there should be a consideration of trauma and the effect it has and how it is affecting them today, trauma and processing it and getting help for it. I honestly believe that is where the discussion will be. In a perfect world, in maybe a couple of months, it would be great if these two men did something publicly. Before then, maybe reach out to, in the black community, elder statesmen like Bishop T.D. Jakes or Denzel Washington, somebody older and wiser that they both look up to, who talk with them, counsel them, and hopefully both of them get therapy and start working on whatever issues they have. But publicly, I would love to see them sit down together, not on his wife's show. I honestly, in my personal opinion, that her show and the things she has said about her marriage on that show definitely did not help matters. That's just me. But I wish both men would sit maybe on YouTube if they can land an interview with Oprah or a program with the Bishop T.D. Jakes, something, if public forum where they have a discussion about trauma. I honestly believe that would be great. Maybe in a couple of months. It's been this story has been on the news so much that if you listen to certain news networks, you kind of almost forget that just a day before that, every single news coverage was about the war in Ukraine, as if it was the only thing happening in the world. And now this has taken it over. And in a month, by the end of April, we are going to be talking about something else. Something else would have happened, and this will be put in the history books. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents in it. Also, people who are out there condemning should realize the only two people who are going to feel the worst about this are A, the man who got hit, and B, the man who hit someone on the biggest night of his career. An Oscar he's been chasing for 35 years. He finally gets it, and he can never erase this moment from that story. This moment is indelibly inked right next on the history books, right next to his Oscars, his crowning achievement. And this is what shows up. I heard there's a Washington told him, when you're at your highest moment, the devil finds a way of messing it up or showing up. I believe that, which is why our pastor always tells us at your happiest moment and when things are going well is when you need to pray the most. Because that's when the devil creeps in and tries to mess things up. You need to be on guard and alert even more, especially spiritually, when things are beginning to go well and at your happiest moments. So let's just my desired lesson that I wish people would learn is you really need to be careful about condemning someone, because if people go poking in your life, guaranteed you've done worse than that man did on that stage. 2, there is a larger discussion about trauma that I really believe should be happening here. And 3, let's all pray. Let's all be prayerful, especially in the moments when we are happy and doors are opening and blessings are flowing in and great and wonderful things are happening. When we are at our happiest, let's also be spiritually alert and pray and guard ourselves against the devices of the enemy, so that whatever it is the enemy plans for bad, God is going to turn for good. Yeah, so that's all I have to say on this subject. I wish you the very best wherever you are. Catch you on the next episode. Remember, blessed.